Yeah. Okay, good evening everybody and welcome to tonight's meeting of Gedling Borough Council Planning Committee. As usual, I'd ask you to make sure that all your mobile phones and other telephonic communication devices are closed down. And that when you speak into the microphone, you speak directly into it and you make sure that your on button is on, and when you finish speaking, make sure it's off. Okay. So, item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence and substitutions. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. All present and correct.
Thank you very much. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. We're missing Councillor Chris Barnfather terribly, and Councillor Sam Smith will be standing in his place, although he's currently running late, but he will be joining us shortly.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of March, which you'll find on pages 5 to 17. Would somebody like to move? And second, thank you very much. All those in favour of that being a correct record, please show. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. The Planning Committee protocol you'll find as usual on pages 19 to 21. I'm sure you've all studied it and memorised it. Okay, item 3 on the agenda is declarations of interest. I will declare a collective non-pecuniary interest on item 5 on behalf of all the members at the meeting. That is the land of Teal Close, Netherfield. Because the council has ownership of the land at Teal Close and the council currently has a lease of land included within the application site. Okay. So we go on to agenda item number 4, which is application 2022/0200, which is land at Lamley Lane, Gedling, which you'll find on page 24 of your agenda papers, erection of 24 dwellings with associated access and landscaping. And I'll hand over to Nigel Bryan to go through this application for us.
Thank you, Chair. The application site covers an area of 0.84 hectares and is allocated for residential development under policy LPD 64. It's a standalone plan application and is for the erection of some 24 dwellings. It will include a range of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties, which will be 2 and 2.5 stories in scale. And the range of dwellings will include detached semis and terraces. 5 of the properties are identified as being affordable, which would include 2 first homes and 3 affordable rent, and all of these units will be 2 bedroom properties. The site will be accessed from land to the south that benefits from planning permission for the erection of 33 dwellings. The layout is considered to respect the character of the area with a number of house types similar to that granted under the previous permission, and each property will have at least 2 parking spaces, with the larger units having 3. Materials will be a mixture of a red and buff brick, and development will comply with Part L of the building regs, which is over and above the statutory minimum, with no fossil fuel heating, rather it will be powered by solar panels and air source heat pumps. The application will be full policy compliant in terms of contributions, and this would include 20% affordable units. And in terms of the restrictions on the first homes outlined in paragraph 6.10 of the report, the household income of the occupants could not be more than £80,000. Contributions will also be secured toward bus stop improvements, education and public open space. And there will also be a local labour agreement, management company for the private drives and ancillary open space, and along with monitoring fees. Given the site is allocated for residential development, the principle is supported and the layout is considered to be acceptable and respect the character of the area. Residential amenity would be respected and the scheme is considered to be policy compliant. And these are just some of the house types that you'll see, example of the 4-bed, the 3-bed properties, and these are the 2-bed affordable. And these are just some pictures. As you can see, the site's largely vacant, and the drainage feature is what you see towards the bottom of the slope, and you can just see the gar on the right-hand side in the bottom, just here. But in terms of recommendation, it is for approval, as outlined on pages 32 to 38 of the committee report. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. So there you have it, the standalone full planning application for the erection of 24 dwellings with associated access and landscaping. Would anybody like to move that application? Thank you. And second? Thank you. Would anybody like to open the debate on this application?
Is this the final development?
Could you put your hand up if you want to?
Is this the
Councillor
final development
Barnes.
down there, or is there some more development to come down there?
I'm not sure about that one. Is this the final development on this site?
On this parcel, adjacent to Lamley Lane, because there's two bits here. I think on the larger chase, it's all got permission now, hasn't it? Yeah.
Councillor Elwood?
Thanks, Chair. Just wanted a little bit of clarification on the surface water drainage issue. I'm a bit unclear because, unless maybe I'm wrong, but in general, these developments, the surface water should be retained on site. Is it called SUDS? But I understand the surface water will actually go into the Hughes Dyke. I mean, I know it's not a big site, it's not a massive, humongous development. It's only 20 odd houses, but just concerned that don't really want any more pressure being put onto the water system in the Hughes Dyke system, which goes through a lot of residential areas in the Gedling area. But just a little bit of clarification on that would be helpful. Thank you.
The SUDS feature you see is at the end here. So in effect, it will drain into, there's a water feature just at the end where it will link into a culvert, but the water will be discharged at a controlled rate. I think it's 5 litres per second. So really anything above the 5 litres per second would then store into the SUDS feature here. But for the most part, that will only be wet at times when there's heavy rainfall. It's intended to be a dry feature for the most part.
So as a matter of course, there wouldn't be much drainage actually going into the Hughes Dyke. It would be a very rare occurrence. Is that the understanding?
No, all of the water will drain it ultimately into the Hughes Dyke. It'll just be that controlled rate, which would then be the same as the surface water runoff, and it's typically at 5 litres per second that it would drain into the Hughes Dyke. But that is the ultimate outfall for the surface water. But it will be controlled at that rate to ensure that it shouldn't really, flood the Hughes Dyke. That's really what the purpose of the SUDS is, as a retaining feature.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. 6.4, you've mentioned the drainage, sorry, 6.5, you've mentioned the drainage feature. So how is the water getting to that then?
Well, the natural ground level is that the water would drain through the pipes that will run down the road into the SUDS feature. So really, there's a high point of the site is roughly along this line. So in effect, these 24 units drain surface water naturally into this SUDS feature and then into the Hughes Dyke. And then these 33 units granted previously drain the opposite way. So the surface water will naturally drain into this into that SUDS feature.
Thank you.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Yes, thank you. And further to what Councillor Elwood was talking about, it appears that the foul water, the sewage and so on, is going to go into already existing drains. We are aware that the discharge of foul and mixed water is already a matter of concern. So I want to raise the comment that is the existing drainage system adequate to take this additional sewage without additional risk of discharge into the Trent or other waterways?
The foul water would in effect be, there's a foul water pump here, so they would have to actually pump the foul water up here and then it'll drain naturally down the other side onto Lamley Lane where the foul water network is. But in effect, they would need to have the consent of Severn Trent to do that. So as long as Severn Trent are happy that they've got the capacity to absorb it, then yes, but really it'd be something for Severn Trent, but they wouldn't, they'd have to have the capacity before they could do it, so it'd largely be down to Severn Trent, but I don't doubt there's capacity to do so.
Thank you. So we can be reassured that Severn Trent consider that the existing system has full capacity to absorb this additional sewage. Thank you.
There'd be a consultancy on the discharge of condition and application itself, yeah.
Do I have any more contributions or questions on this item? Are you quite content that I move to the vote? Councillor Adams.
Just a tiny point, Chair, for me. I've seen that we've got the solar and the air source, which is great to see, and also the EV charging points, which are going to be located at the properties as well. Do you know if there's going to be any batteries included within that? Is it an actual scheme that we're requesting them to do, or is it part of the scheme? Are they telling us that's what they're doing? And will it be included in affordable properties on the site as well? Thanks.
They're not intended to have the batteries, so I think, say there was any excess, I think they sell it back to the grid. And then in terms of the solar panels and the air source heat pumps, that's throughout the sites. That'll be on the affordable and the open market, so they'd all have the same level of kind of sustainability in terms of renewables, etc.
Any more queries, questions, contributions? Are you content that I move to the vote? Okay, you have the proposal, erection of 24 dwellings and associated access and landscaping. You have the recommendation on page 32 of your agenda papers, which is to grant planning permission subject to the owner entering into the planning obligations secured through a Section 108 agreement, etc., as detailed in that paragraph. Can I see all those in favour of granting this application, please show. Okay. And against? And abstentions? Thank you. That has been granted. If we can now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda item 5, application 2019/0560, land of Teal Close, Netherfield, which you'll find on page 40 of your agenda papers, which is a reserve matters application, erection of 255 dwellings, etc., applicant Person and Homes. And we do have a speaker on this item, which is Grace Clarkson, the Land and Planning Manager from Person and Homes, Nottingham. So if you could come to the lectern, please. And if you could keep your delivery to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Dear members of the committee, my name is Grace Clarkson and I'm the Land and Planning Manager for Persimmon Homes Nottingham, who are the applicant of this proposal. Persimmon Homes are one of the nation's leading 5-star house builders, delivering over 15,000 homes per year. The application before you represents phase 3 of our successful Teal Close development and is for a total of 255 dwellings. Phase 1 commenced construction in 2018 and is now complete. Phase 2 residential development is well underway. We're making good progress with many of the houses now occupied. Phase 3 intends on keeping the same principles already established on the other phases, which is high quality housing in a sustainable location. Phase 3 will comprise Persimmon house types and house types from our other brand, Charles Church. The Persimmon element comprises new house types, although these are very much in keeping with those built on phases 1 and 2, with some elevational improvements. And the Charles Church types will be larger, more executive 3 and 4 bedroom types, introducing more choice for our customers. Wide expanses of landscaping is proposed, including trees, hedgerows and a well-equipped area of play situated in the centre of Phase 3. A site-wide drainage strategy has already been approved, and this phase continues the delivery of large swales to ensure a sustainable drainage network is implemented. This is one that is effective at draining the scheme and also one that provides amenity benefits for residents. Overall, the proposal here before you is in accordance with the principles already established by the Outline Planning Permission. Despite the effects of the pandemic, the demand for houses in this location remains strong, and Persimmon remain committed to delivering high-quality housing for the local community. This site will keep a significant number of people employed on site and into the supply chain, bringing significant and wide economic benefits while providing new homes for families in a safe and considerate manner. I therefore ask that you support your officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask Kevin Cartwright to elaborate on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal relates to a reserved matters application for 255 dwellings as part of the final phase of the Teal Close development. The scheme accords with the approved parameters plan that was previously varied by the Section 73 application, in that there will be a single access point off the Collick Loop Road. That's the approved master plan. That's the single access point, which more or less mirrors the current access point that goes into phase 2 and 3, which is known as Magenta Way. There will be a mix of house types which would follow those of the earlier phases, with a mix of materials with rendering key locations within the site. Again, the proposal accords with the approved parameters plan in that there will be a green corridor running through the centre of the site and an equipped play area. Additional details have been provided in relation to the garages within the site, which now conform with the adopted supplementary planning guidance document in relation to their footprints, in that their widths and lengths comply with the SPD. The garage openings are marginally below that set out in the SPD, but overall the scheme is considered to accord with the document, as there would be the ability to park a vehicle on the highway outside of each property. A revised layout plan has also been submitted that now shows bin collection points at the end of the adopted highway and the private drives. This will ensure that the future occupiers will not have an unacceptable bin carry distance. As such, it's necessary to update the approved plan condition 1, to include the additional garage plans and the revised layout plan that now includes the bin collection points. There's individual plot landscaping within each site. It's nice to see some hedgerows planted at the corner in key corner locations rather than sometimes just stark boundary treatments. And we've got a mix of house types. I'll just flick through. There's the garage details. As we can see now, that they are compliant with the SPD in so much that they are 6 by 3 from a footprint dimension. There's some photographs of the site. They're just taken along the frontage there, along the Collick Loop Road. And then again taken from the Magenta Way junction looking into the site. So the application is recommended for approval, subject to the amendments aforementioned to condition 1, to include the garage plans and the revised layout plan that incorporates the bin collection points. The application is recommended for approval, incorporating these revisions. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So there we have it on page 40 of your papers, application number 2019/0560. Land off Teal Close reserve matters application for the erection of 255 dwellings. Would anybody like to move that application? And seconded. Thank you very much. Would anybody like to open the debate on this application? Councillor Lawrence.
I'm just wondering why the County Council in two instances from two different departments have asked for conditions which have already been agreed. Maybe you can't answer that.
I think it's very much the subtlety between a reserved matter application and a full planning application. At the end of the day, they are the consultees, and sometimes they don't necessarily appreciate that it is a reserved matter. And as you already say, a lot of these issues are addressed at the outline stage. You know, there are conditions specific to drainage, etc., all on the outline, which this reserve matter will have to comply with. So I think it is just the subtleties of a reserve matter application compared to a full planning application, as the previous one was.
Thank you.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've raised this before on previous phases, but 255 dwellings, 13 affordable houses, that's about 5%. What are the Gedling Borough guidelines on affordable housing?
Thank you, Chairman. This is in accordance with the approved Section 106 agreement. I think it's my understanding, whilst it's before my time at this authority, I think a revised level of affordable housing was agreed on this allocation, which is slightly below what we had elsewhere.
That's correct, Mr. Cartwright. My understanding is that there were viability issues, so this committee agreed, having regard to all of the relevant material considerations, that in this instance a reduced level of affordable housing would be appropriate in order to enable the development to come forward.
If I could come back, I'm fully aware of that, but I did want to make it clear that once again, we're reneging on a clear policy, which is to provide affordable housing. That's the only reason I raised it.
So this application is an application for the approval of reserve matters, and that relates to the historic 2000, the outline permission initially granted in 2014.
Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is an asset to that part of the borough which is being developed, which we went down a few weeks ago to an old folks place down there, which I was very impressed with. And I think this is going to be an area where people want to go and live, because the loop road's working tremendous now. It's easy to get out of Nottingham that end, that way. And I think it'll be a very, very successful development when it's finished. And I think I look forward to open arm here when it's finished. But I think it'll be a very, very, very useful development for the people in Gedling. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Barnes, could you speak into your microphone? If you could bend the microphone down and speak directly into it, please. I'm afraid many people actually missed what you were saying there. Were you indicating earlier, Councillor Adams? Well, you are now anyway.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, just a couple of things about, I think I ran this by you, Mr. Avery, at the time that the last development was completed across the road, and about the marketing of said development. If you remember, across the road it was marketed as Stoke Bardolph / Burton, with a comma, and then Burton Joyce. Can we confirm what this is going to be marketed at? Because I was approached by a couple of people that had brought properties on that location and were under the impression it was actually in the Burton Joyce locality, whereas in fact it was in Stoke Bardolph. Just for the avoidance and doubt, can we confirm for the committee exactly what the address of these properties will be as concern their actual location within the borough? Thank you.
With all due respect, Councillor, I don't think that is a material planning consideration.
I can confirm that will be dealt with through the street naming and numbering process. So that's dealt with separately to the planning application. As that process gets underway, we can provide clarification to Councillor Adams at that time.
Anybody else wish to ask a question or contribute to this debate? Or are you quite content for me to go to the vote? It would seem so. So here you have the proposal, reserve matters application for the erection of 255 dwellings, etc., etc. You will find the recommendation on page 49 of your agenda papers, which is to grant approval of reserve matters subject to the conditions listed below. Can I see all those in favour, please show? And again, and abstentions. That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Now let's move on to agenda item 6, which is here before us because the applicant is a member of staff of Gedling Borough Council. And the application is for a construct a first floor side extension on 23 Holsworth Rise, Gedling. Would somebody like to move that? And second? Would anybody like to ask any questions or put any contributions to this? Okay, so let's move to the recommendation, which you'll find on page 57, which is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions listed below. All those in favour, please show. And again, stand abstentions. Thank you very much. That one is carried. Agenda item 7, which was direction of a dwelling between 3741 Kig Hill Lane, which we refused. They appealed, and their appeal has been dismissed. Agenda item 8, Hipster Gable roof extension to the rear of an existing property plus upgraded boundary treatments. We had no option, but because we couldn't split this in two, we had to deny both parts of the application. The inspector has dismissed the appeal in as far as it relates to Hipster Gable, but allowed it as far as the boundary treatment, but this is of no detriment to us and the decision that we made. Agenda item 9, which is land at the corner of Cross Street, Arnold, which is a residential development. This is a bit of a complicated one, so I'll ask Kevin if he can just explain it in greater detail.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it was a slightly strange one in so much that the inspector seemed to more or less agree with everything we were saying and our reasons for refusal, but then came to the conclusion that it was acceptable. The proposal is a sort of corner plot, slightly triangular in shape, and the proposal was for 2 dwellings in these 2 positions here. We were very much of the opinion that it was sort of tantamount to backland development, sort of located to the rear of the existing properties, albeit there wasn't anything directly in front of it. But we took the view that it didn't really respect the form and character of the area, in so much that they weren't strictly fronting Acton Road. They were very much set close to the rear boundary, reasonably close to the rear garden areas of the properties on Duke Street. Didn't really present a strong sort of frontage to Acton Road, and for all intents and purposes what we considered to be not very good planning. And as I say, the inspector seemed to be echoing that in his decision, where he said, you know, I accept they're inward facing in nature, the 2 dwellings are different from the wider area, but took the view that there was very much a mixed character to the area, and due to the rather irregular shape of the plot, decided that it was acceptable. So it's a bit of a strange one, really, and one I wouldn't want to sort of cite as a precedent in any other sort of future applications. You know, I think we were, in my opinion, very much right to say it was a sort of tension with the surrounding area and correct to refuse, but the inspector just came to a different decision than ourselves.
Okay, well, there we go. You win some, you lose some.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question, please?
Yeah.
Am I right? Is this Methodist Chapel on corner of Cross Street, whether you've got the Tory Club, Elmer's we knew it as, corner of Cross Street?
It's just a vacant site at the moment. It's overgrown, I think.
No.
It's the top end. It's really heavily vegetated. It's, you know,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
got.
sorry, I thought you were the old Methodist Chapel, because
No.
that's been on the market for a while.
Okay, we'll move on. Agenda item 10, future planning applications. Agenda item 11, planning delegation panel action sheets. And then agenda item 12, any other items which the chair considers urgent? And I don't have any items that I consider urgent. So I'd just like to thank you all for attending the meeting tonight. and have a safe journey home. And thank you for Mrs. Councillor Smith for coming.
I felt like I really contributed there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But we rather got things wrapped up. Thank you for making the efforts to